yeah, so then I kind of just started doing it and still doing it.
That's cool. It's rewarding. A lot of things happened during this pandemic. A lot of life changes.
Like you being in Brazil for 3 months longer. Oh.
And my project also was born there, kind of. So.
And
yeah.
Oh, okay.
During this pandemic.
Well. Okay, I was going to ask you anyway. Like, I kind of wanted to have this as a fairly early question, how you started this, because maybe for context, Bianca and I know each other from working in Aaron Sugar's lab. I did my master's and Bianca did or is still doing her PhD. But I don't remember you ever talking about blockchain or peer review or wanting to create a new system or something like that. So I actually was quite curious. When did this happen? It's somehow the last, like, we haven't really talked for 3 years or something. And
yeah, it's very new actually, in the sense that I've done peer reviews during my PhD. Probably not when we crossed paths in the lab, but after. I was invited to do peer reviews, so I kind of had the experience as a reviewer before having the experience of publishing papers as a PhD student.
Yeah.
So I kind of know the system. But then I would say about 1.5 years ago, I started getting a lot more interested in meta-science. So all this domain that concerns how to do science and, open access, open science, and everything related from even just statistics and how to communicate science and so on. And then I remember that in this period I was really like pretty much involved into reading literature, reviews about these topics, and somehow also about peer reviewing and how to improve systems in academia, writing papers and doing reviews. So reviews about how to do a good review of papers. And I had these ideas that were, buzzing in my head, like how a peer review system could be better. And somehow it happened that at the same time I also started watching a lot of videos by 3 Blue 1 Brown. I don't know if you know him.
I think most people,
but some people don't know.
Or not actually, yeah. No, I feel like I've introduced. I tried to introduce most of the people I know to him, and most people say like, "Oh, whatever, maths, I don't care." And then half a year later, they'll watch the videos and go, "By the way, have you seen these videos with Theory Found? They're really great."
They're really great, exactly.
I told you.
Yeah. So yeah. So in the same.
Oh, so then you saw his, like, how does Bitcoin work, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Or? So that was the thing that started sparking my interest on distributed ledger technology and blockchain. And this was the first time in which I made the connection between peer reviews and blockchain. But I was totally disconnected from the blockchain community. I didn't know how to do it. Like, how can I get my idea into something more? And so I just let it rest. And then COVID came. And I had extra time to get bored. And getting bored is not something bad, because, the ancient Romans had a word for it, like otium. It's like the time you spend studying, not working, which is negotium. So I had extra time for this otium, for this laziness. And then I randomly found out about a hackathon that was going to be held in my hometown, Turin, in Italy, that concerned, basically, hackathons are these very short-term competitions in which can last even just few days. And you go there with an idea and you try to develop it. And this hackathon was very specific for blockchain called Ethereum, which is probably the second most known blockchain. because it was born after Bitcoin. And it was really interesting because the purpose of the hackathon was to design and develop projects with a local impact. So a totally different angle from what I had absorbed before about blockchain, which I always related to cryptocurrency, and so speculation and so I kind of I convinced myself to participate to this competition, although I was the only not developer there probably. And I was the only PhD student for sure, the only person from an academic background, not from a software engineering background, and also almost totally naive about blockchain. And actually probably also the only woman in the competition. And to prepare myself for the hackathon, I started studying,
So just before that, how did you take part in this? If you so you were later part of a team, right? But did you sign up as a team, or do people just go and then figure out a project, or
Yeah, so basically, I don't know about other teams. Maybe some people already knew each other. In my case, I signed up alone as a designer, let's say, and pretty much in this kind of hackathons, but also in general for what it concerns this tech environment that is also related to startups, it's always good balance for the organizers to have people that are more into the design part and others that are more on the developing part. So it was kind of expected that some people would be, in charge of one side, and the idea was actually to meet new people there and form groups there. The only thing that is that originally we were supposed to be in Turin and physically meet with other people, but then this couldn't happen because of the pandemic, so the whole thing became online. And I basically had a few weeks before the hackathon in which I kind of developed the main concept of my project. And we had 3 days of hackathon. So basically in one day I had to figure out who's going to be my partner, who's going to help me in this. And so I started hunting for developers, and I found someone who really matched with me in the sense that was really into this idea and also had experience in developing some of its core aspects, Nazareno. And so we decided to make a proof of concept together. And in just a few days, we developed a proof of concept and we wrote a first paper, let's say. So this was pretty amazing, literally 2 days of no sleep, because at the time I was in Brazil. I was stuck in Brazil and he was in London. So imagine we had to coordinate with this 5 hours of time difference. And then turns out that, we did a pretty good job. We were really proud of ourselves for doing such a thing in 48 hours, basically. And at the end, we won the hackathon. We won the first place and the first prize. So we got super excited and we said, let's go on, let's continue this project. So that's kind of how it developed. And so in the next months, we kept in touch and we continued working on aspects that were both communication, building community, but also we decided to present a more formal academic paper. So we started writing it. And at the same time, we also decided to apply for another program, a fellowship that was the first program for Web3 designers and developers, sponsored and funded by Gitcoin and Consensus, which are two main companies in the blockchain domain, kind of like the Google of, blockchain. And our project got accepted, and us as a team. So we had 2 months in which we were incubated in this Web3 group of 150 people.
So what is Web3?
Okay, yeah. So basically, the internet that we have now is called Web2, which follows the Web 1, which was the first internet. So the first internet was completely open to everyone, in a sense. It was not centralized. And then after mid-2000, with the rise of the big tech companies like Google, Facebook, basically the internet became centralized, and those aggregators make money on people's usage of the internet. So basically the users became the products. And the Web3 is the future web that people are in the blockchain are trying to develop. And the idea is that it's decentralized internet. So it's not owned by specific companies, and the power is distributed among the users. So the users have, again, power on the content. So if you upload something, it belongs to you. Your data doesn't go to a third party.
And so, but this is still, in development. That's what people are trying to build.
Yeah, I mean, there is something already existing, but it's not widely used because you still need to interact with this. There is, for example, IPFS, Interplanetary File System, that has this decentralized storage of data. And the cool thing is that what you put on it is assigned a cryptographic hash. So basically, it's like a fingerprint, we can say, of this specific file that universally identifies it, and the file cannot be withdrawn. So everything that is on the blockchain stays forever on the blockchain. You can't remove it. So it's censorship resistant, we would say. Things like, has happened recently with Facebook, Twitter, banning accounts wouldn't be possible.
Yeah. So where were you going before I interrupted you?
Yeah, no, I was just saying that we were accepted into this program. And there we had really a lot of mentorship from people that are really in the blockchain domain. And they were even the co-founders of Ethereum, and, people who work in these different companies. And so we had a lot of valuable exchanges also with peers, or the other fellows that were building startups in the blockchain system. Of course, Ant's Review, this project is a bit special because it's something like meant to bridge the academia universe of people who mostly don't use, crypto or blockchain, to a universe that is, for now, mostly related to people in business or in software development.
Okay, shall we maybe... I realized I haven't really structured this particularly well in terms of like introducing ants and all this kind of stuff. Maybe shall we kind of from the ground up motivate what you're doing here? Because I guess we haven't really introduced what ants is, why it's necessary, and what problem it solves. So maybe, what's wrong with peer review?
Lots of things.
You've got 5 minutes. We have to limit this.
Okay. Well, of course, I had my personal experience, but then I started reading about it, and I discovered a lot of meta science about peer reviews and a lot of comments by other researchers all converging to some core ideas about why peer review is not like the most perfect system right now, in the sense that it's kind of biased, especially because the most common system for doing peer review is the single blind review process. So what happens is that when you get your paper reviewed, you don't know who the reviewer is, but the reviewer know who you are. And as simply as that, even the most professional reviewer could just, read information about you and get biased about, I don't know, previous publications or your laboratory. And
just the institution, right? That's enough.
The institution, this is a lot of weight. And indeed, there has been research proving that when you introduce a double-blind system, you really get those biases reduced. So it's much better for minorities in science, let's say women and other researchers from, let's say, not Western Europe or America. But of course, I think the most evident problem of peer review is just that it's too slow, and people are not committed into reviewing papers for free. So I really got this feeling that when people are asked to review, they just do it because, I don't know, they know the editor knows them, they're afraid of, saying no, but actually, I have my own research to do. I don't want to waste my time doing research for someone else and not getting any credit for it. And indeed, it's I found it pretty bad that, for example, when a paper is published, sometimes the reviewers are not even acknowledged, not even anonymously, It's just like, okay, the final product is there. This is the paper of the authors, but actually there were people who gave extensive comments, and sometimes they might even have structurally changed the paper, proposing new analysis and so on, or new literature.
I mean, yeah, even in my limited experience with peer review, I mean, so I haven't been asked myself, but sometimes, my supervisor will get something and then we'll kind of help out, get to learn this is how it works a bit, right? And also give some comments. And I mean, sometimes it's crazy how much at least we think, improve a paper. I don't know, maybe the authors are just annoyed by our stupid comments. But I mean, sometimes you have a paper that really needs to be improved. It's just, there's some glaring problems with it. And yeah, you're right. All you get is you can put on your CV, you reviewed for this journal, even though basically, especially if it's a registered report, right, where they haven't collected data yet, I feel like sometimes I can't have done much less work than some of the co-authors, in terms of how much we improved this paper, yeah, but you get absolutely nothing for it other than maybe the hope of some karma or something. Someone will do this to you, right? But
yeah,
that's exactly all you get.
It's just a service to the community, which is okay. But on the other side, other scientific outputs are really overvalued, even just publishing a paper itself over, I don't know, writing code, so software.
Yeah.
But if you think software development is just a core aspect of doing research, at least depends on the field, of course, but for example, in my field, you really need to program everything from the stimuli to the analysis. So just crazy that at the end, what counts is just the story that you build upon all these efforts, right? And yeah, so I thought we're still talking about what's the things that are wrong in peer review. So the biases, the lack of incentives, and probably, so that's maybe just my personal idea, although I had the chance to, check with other researchers, but I have this strong conviction that it's the lack of incentives that makes the process slow and makes it also so hard to find reviewers. And also the fact that the selection process of reviewers is kind of like top down. So it's the journal who has to look for people who are, expert in this field. So this is already extra time. Well, if you had like a community-driven, approach in which people just see the papers and they decide, oh, this is my field, my domain. Maybe I'm interested in, I might review it, and it's kind of what happens with the preprint servers. Like you already see the paper and people leave comments, tweet about it. The problem is that this has not the same value as something that goes through the journal system. So we were wondering if it would be possible to create a system that basically doesn't let this value get dispersed, but can extract it and channel it in a way that it's also not just authors can benefit from it, but also the reviewers themselves, and create a sort of virtuous circle, a gamified system in which everyone, is motivated to do what they are right now naturally supposed to do, and at the same time, right, because they are incentivized, they would do it, for the best outcome that is also in a certain way through a good behavior. So without cheating, without trying to, to get shortcuts, because it's very rare, but it's still a feeling that both authors and reviewers have displayed misbehavior in the field. So like authors might try to get the review passed by, falsifying data, results, or there have been even cases of authors that were the reviewers themselves.
Oh wait, I heard of some cases,
but mostly, of course, the case is what we hear in pop science culture, that there is this terrible reviewer too that is just gonna destroy your paper, make you feel really bad about your work, and you have to redo your paper all over again thousands of times.
Yeah, what I find the quality of peer review is something that, in my still limited experience, I've also found really weird. I mean, there was, some paper where it wasn't like we reviewed it, it wasn't a bad paper, but it clearly some stuff needed to be changed. It's fairly obvious, not in terms of like they should do an experiment or anything like that, but just like what they presented, some of that had to be changed. And again, it's not a bad paper, and I think we probably suggested that it should be accepted or something, but like, you have to make like some not big changes, but like some of the interpretation was just way out of line. Yeah, just a few things that really weren't that great. And then, we see like, I think we might have been reviewer two, but then like reviewer one or something just wrote like, this looks great, I look forward to this being published or something. It's like, did you even read the paper? like this is not great. Like it's objectively not great. How can you? And this has happened a few times now that I've seen it, that if you have 2 or 3 reviewers, there's often one reviewer who seems to have barely read the paper at all, and just writes something like, oh yeah, this is okay. And then it's like, come on, man, I put like 5 hours into this and found like so many problems that they can fix and that improves the paper. And then other people just seem to just say, yep, looks good.
Yeah, that's why we were also thinking maybe there should be a system that also review the reviewers. It's this problem of who watches the watchers. If it was on a community basis and publicly accessible to all researchers, imagine you would have the papers, the reviewers, the views, and people could just decide where to jump in. And of course, on the incentivization side, this would be solved. But then how do you protect from, other kind of behaviors, like people who try to cheat to get things published faster or in the way they want? So that's where the idea of privacy comes. And so we would like to have a system that is at the same time, double blind, but everyone's identity is accountable. So everyone is accountable in the system. So it's anonymous, but not in a way that you can't really track down who was the author of this review or not.
Yeah. I have a few points or questions about anonymity. Shall we talk about that in a second?
About
anonymity. So I have a few. Yeah, I just have a few questions there. Shall we just pause that for a second, and we'll get there in like a few minutes. I'd like to just go over some of the basics. Actually, one thing that you said about reviewing the reviewers. So I like the idea of that. And in some cases, I think that's fairly easy to do. If someone says look, here are all these flaws and they're obvious flaws, and another reviewer just doesn't see them and just says looks good, then it's very easy to say, look, this person didn't pay attention or whatever. It seems to me if someone just, if you have a review that's two sentences long, it's very easy to show that that's not a good review in most cases. But I'm just curious, do you think people are actually going to review the reviewers? Because I feel like it's just that's just going to add more time and effort for everyone, right? I don't know. When I read that, I thought it's a nice idea. I just can't see anyone wanting to do it unless that is also incentivized.
Yeah, so it is also incentivized. So the idea would be that anyway, all these transactions happen in this platform that is called Ant Review, and which is both a bounty and a pool for tokens.
What does that mean?
So just to explain, so a bounty is it's a very common system for software developers. Basically, it's like a prize that companies can give to solve a specific issue, a bug, or even something bigger in a program or in a system. So basically, the idea is that when an author uploads the paper, he can set up a reward, right, which has a price in the native token of Ant Review. The idea is that though this value, this monetary reward, is hidden, such that people are not incentivized to do this specific review or another one just because of the money.
So you don't say I'm going to do this review and then get that amount of tokens or whatever.
You're just going to do the review because this is your field. This is your field of expertise, of competence. You don't know how much you're going to get. The idea is that the reward, it's both monetary and reputation. So this is something we still have to work on. So we haven't implemented yet. It's still on design. Right now, we only have implemented in a minimum viable product this token ants that you can withdraw once the peer review is accepted by the community, let's say. But basically, everyone, also the validators of the peer reviews, can have this reward for doing. Mm-hmm. Because anyway, each transaction is gonna cost some gas, and then you can have some reward for what you do in the system. Beside that, we also introduced this idea of a pool, in the sense that basically the community could be the one that provides, let's say, the money, And in a sense, it's like a sort of exchange, right? You have this token that are these tokens that are put on stake and then can be used. And the more you keep these tokens, the more the value increases over time. So basically, it accrues interest. So this is one of ideas that we thought about. And in this way, it's kind of like it's going to be everyone's turn at some point to have the paper review, to do re-review, or the review of the review. So everyone gets something. Of course, you cannot imagine to have like 1,000 people doing a review. So what's going to happen is that basically the reward is going to given to the best reviews. And for this, we were imagining something like a voting system, an up-down voting system in which people will evaluate, okay, this is for me the best review. And if they, let's say, they voted the best one, then they're also going to have some incentives from it. So they can take shares from the reward of the review.
Okay, so I have a few questions about tokens also. So one thing that wasn't quite clear to me is, so let's say I write a review, and let's say it's very good and I get the reward for it. What tokens do I get? It wasn't clear to me. Do I get ants, like your own tokens, or do I get ETH? What exactly do I get here?
Yeah, so this is something still in development. For now, we only have ants, because our platform is still on testnet. We don't have it on the main on chain, let's say. But the idea is that this token is kind of like, we're gonna have a token that is for the reputation, which could be ants, and then we could have a monetary reward in a regular cryptocurrency, for example, Ether or DAI or whatsoever. We haven't clarified yet, in the sense that we haven't really implemented, but this is one option. Otherwise, another option would be that ants itself becomes a token that is exchangeable with other cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that was going to be like this. I mean, the reason I asked this question is whether this is supposed to be a system that's contained in itself, in terms of there's a certain amount of you can review stuff and then you get these tokens and then you can use it so people review your stuff. But it all stays within the system, or whether this is supposed to be something that, relates to a regular cryptocurrency like Ethereum or something like that.
Yeah, no, we weren't thinking of something totally closed. So in a way, we're thinking of a system that is actually open to other cryptocurrencies, but who knows, maybe to fiat currencies. The idea would be that Ants Review is a modular platform. So we were also thinking about the platform being a sort of integration to other possible applications. For example, could be also like something that integrates already existing journals without having its own open access journals. We're also considering having an open access journal for that, but for now we are, just keeping to the peer review. But yeah, basically it could be something very valuable for this, this process that is before the final acceptance of a paper in a journal. So it could really integrate well with the preprint services and this preview that can happen in between, which is now called pre-review. So basically a review that is, decoupled from the classical journal systems. So it doesn't really happen in the process of submission of the paper, but it happens before, and it's transferable. And yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, one reason I was also asking about whether this is a closed system or can relate to other cryptocurrencies or non-cryptocurrencies is, so one thing that and maybe I'm just misunderstanding something here, but one problem I saw is that I felt like if not done very carefully, this, let's say like in a few years, like the system is accepted and everyone's using it, let's say. It seemed to me like it might very likely increase inequality in the system, in the scientific system, because you could have rich labs from, that are well funded that could then, put very high incentives on their reviews. So then everyone wants to review those papers because if you manage to get one, you get more money.
Yeah.
Which then means that kind of the rich labs get the good peer review and the poor labs get not necessarily bad peer review, but not quite as many people are trying to really put the best effort into it. And also then in addition to that, you also have the thing that if you can buy whatever token you use that you give as a bounty for reviewing your paper, if you're rich, you might never have an incentive to actually write a peer review because you can just buy them from your lab funds. Whereas other labs might have to do lots of peer review before they have enough tokens that they can have one of their own papers peer reviewed.
So this thing connects kind of to what I briefly mentioned before, to the privacy. So basically, that's why we want to have not only the identities of the agents in the system, but also the transactions private. In order to do that, we would like to introduce a cryptographic method that is called zero knowledge proof, which is basically a method that guarantees you the validity of a statement without actually revealing what the statement is about. So basically, if you have the classic example of Alice and Bob, of the author and the peer review, you get the peer review uploaded and also let's say the monetary value of it, and the only thing that the receiver will know from the sender is that, okay, this has a specific value, but you don't know how much. So basically, it's kind of like a sort of permutation. This cryptographic system works with a permutation algorithm that basically it's secure in terms of, let's say, A is A, but the people don't know that this is about A and not B. They just know the identity of two items, let's say. And this is already implemented by some companies. And basically the idea is that the tokens would be wrapped with this zero knowledge proof. So instead of ANDs, you would have ZK ANDs. So the only thing you know is that you're going to get something, but you don't know how much.
But why would I do it if I don't know how much I'm going to get? If let's say there's like this paper that, I mean, of course I want to give back to the community. And so, sometimes you also like, some reviews we've gotten that we've done have been because we thought the paper looked interesting, right? Like that's definitely the case. But it seems to me if a large bonus of answer review is that it's incentivized, I'd like to know how much I'm going to get, because I don't want to put all this effort and then get 10 cents or something.
Yeah, but that's where the community comes in the sense that anyway the reward is going to be proportional to your efforts, right? So the more efforts you do, the better the quality of your review, the more your reputation is going to be on stake, and also the reward. There is an initial, let's say, bounty that is associated to the review, but in a sense, people are also going to bet on the quality of the review. So this is also going to increase the value.
I see.
So
you get, okay. Yeah.
You have like these validators of the reviews themselves, of the peer reviews, that are going to say, oh, I think this one is really good. I want to, put my tokens there. And
Okay, I see. So, the initial bounty you get or might get is only part of the compensation you get for doing the room. Okay, then this leads to the next problem.
Okay, so many problems. I thought I proposed a solution.
No. I mean, this is also maybe it is, right? Like maybe you have. It's just like so. This is actually something that my father said. I briefly mentioned I was going to do this interview, and
okay.
What this was about. So he used to work as a software developer, and he said that. I mean, this isn't like a blockchain problem or anything, but he said basically they used to have this like system at the company he worked for, where they had this like online forum where people could, write posts and questions, and it was kind of, I guess, like an internal Stack Overflow or something like that. I don't know. Something along those lines. And what he said was that they stopped it pretty quickly because he worked for a very big company, and they ended up with these like circles of people who just ended up upvoting each other's comments. So someone would just like write, I agree, and would get like 4,000 upvotes or something. And then it looked like this person had made a great comment, even though they hadn't said anything. So then this leads to the kind of question of if your reputation depends on how many people upvote you, how can you... It seems like this system could fairly easily be abused, right? I mean, I guess you say, okay, it might be anonymous, right? So therefore it's hard to know, but I don't know. I wonder like how anonymous it is and whether it's not possible to have people basically, just give fake feedback that helps each other out or something like that, right?
Basically cheating, yeah.
Yeah, kind of, but in a way like for each other, I don't know, is that solved by anonymity or...
we think it is, in the sense that, you're not going to see the names of the people. You're going to see these public keys, which are this, hash of numbers. And it's true that even right now on the Ethereum, because it's a public blockchain, you see all the transaction publicly. So if you browse on Etherscan and you know that this specific address belongs to this person, you can know basically you have access to their bank account, their blockchain account. So you know how much they spend on what. And
but especially in science, if you have such a small world, right, you very quickly get into a situation where it's probably, especially if you have like a small field, fairly easy to figure out who's who, right?
Well, yeah, yes and no, in the sense that I still imagine that if you have a platform with lots of, cryptographic hashes, I wouldn't really know exactly with 100% certainty that this is banned and not someone else working more or less in the field. Also,
sorry, but like if the plan is to kind of, let's say, Bianca, you and I, we say, you know what, we should make some money with this platform, right? Then I just give you my hash and you give me yours, and then problem solved, right? Like it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, this could be a problem, but still, so that's why we wanted to introduce zero knowledge proof and homomorphic encryption in order to have this, higher level of security on the problem of the Ethereum addresses. But I also imagine that in terms of scale, it's gonna be really hard to, like, even if you and me decide, okay, let's vote each other, it's gonna be just one vote against many other people. So the system is meant to be resistant to the so-called Sybil attack, which is this...
what attack?
Sybil attack. In computer science, a Sybil attack is basically when you try to multiply your identities to take profit.
Okay.
So I just opened several accounts and with different names, and then I would just vote myself, for example. This is a Sybil attack. And so this wouldn't be possible in the platform. Already, for example, in our MVP, even if you try, you can't be the reviewer and the author at the same time. So one of our, let's say, more like early UX design, let's say, users try to do that, and it was like, oh, I can't do my review, of course, because you just uploaded the paper, so you can't review it on your own, because basically once you put the file, it's stored in IPFS, and the system knows that you are this person, and you can't do the same thing twice. So from this point of view, that's the good thing of blockchain, because it's the security, and that's the thing why people are really moving towards it. So it's not just the incentive, but also the security. On the human side, of course, this cannot. I always think that even if you have the highest, most perfect technology, you're always gonna find a way to cheat in the system.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And
but the thing is, in this case, it's kind of really useful though to do it, right? Because in this case, it's with fairly little effort. Us just telling each other what our hashes are and then upvoting each other's reviews. If this becomes a standard thing, then it's quite lucrative, I'd imagine, financially.
Yes, but I don't know. It's really kind of like a game theory problem. And for example, I don't know if you know, there is a nice simulation online made by this developer. I think it's called, they are called Nikki. I need to find it. It's really fun. Basically, you can play with game theory with different characters, and you can be the bad guy, or like the cooperative one, or the copycat, basically someone who copies.
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's. I'll put a link to that in the description. I'll find it. I have it somewhere. Yeah.
I cannot type right now, otherwise I would look for the name.
Yeah. No, I have it in the description of the podcast. I always have references and links and stuff, so I'll put it there.
Okay. And basically, when you do the simulation, you play the game, you see that in the long term, bad behavior is not promoted. So only in the short term, you really have an advantage of being, the speculator, in a sense. It's always a mix between cooperation and, let's say, more egoistic behavior. And you can really see that in the long term, it's kind of like more profitable to have this, collaborative approach.
So, I mean, so yes and no. So, I mean, whether cooperation or defection pays off really depends on the environment. So if you are, so let's take the example of the iterative prisoner's dilemma in that game. If you have a population that consists entirely of people who cooperate all the time, then it pays off maximally to defect every single time, because the others are going to cooperate every time. Yeah. But for example, if you play against other people who play, for example, tit for tat or win say lose shift, then cooperating pays off more in the long run. Now, the one reason also why I'm interested in blockchain is because, my work is also about game theory, and in blockchain there's a lot about game theory in there.
Yeah, because it's mechanism design.
Exactly, and that's basically what I want to get at now, is that in a way, whether cooperation or defection is profitable depends on how you set up the system. And I guess my question is whether you can set yours up in a way that allows or that leads to defection not being profitable anymore. Whereas in the example of my father's company thing, or the company my father worked in, it's not his company. In that case, the environment was set up so defection did pay off quite well. So to me, it seems that it really depends on how you set up the thing.
Yeah. So I think for that, we would need to do a research aside, just to study the effects of adding this rewarding aspect in the system, because just by I can have my personal hypothesis about it, but I don't know if the data would correspond to reality. Maybe we would need to run simulations about that. But in general, I think that if we consider the specific environment of scientific research, it's not like you're opening the system to everyone. People care about having good science, right? Because that's the reason they're working for. So I don't. Of course, this is pretty much speculation, speculative, not in that sense, but in the sense, it's just theoretical.
Yeah.
But of course, we must consider that these are just marginal cases, the ones that are gonna be cheating all the time in order to lucrate from the system. And even that, it would be really odd if the community, the other agents in the system don't realize it. So yeah, I can't really, be super certain about that, because we haven't really started a pilot in which we had actual researchers using the platform, but only few users by themselves. So there was the complexity was smaller. But I've seen other experiments like that for peer reviewing in Web 2, let's say, platforms without monetary reward, where the reward was actually, for example, having some badge or like some position on the website, a sort of internal impact factor. And my impression was more like that people would try to do as many reviews as possible to increase the quantity. And I don't know if this system evaluates the quality, but I think when you put the quality on stake, this is an important factor that might, discourage dishonest behavior, because unless you have only good friends that vote for each other's perfect reviews or papers, there's always gonna be things to be improved, right? And if I am an external researcher and I see, oh, these people are voting this paper, this review, which is really bad, I'm not gonna let them do it. So I think there's gonna be some networking effect for which other scientists would gather up and say, nope, this is not good. And kind of like what happens on Twitter, right? When you see people posting stuff and other people not agreeing with that, I think it would be more or less like this. And also there is another thing that we think it might happen when you shift from this top-down perspective to this bottom-up one, is that if you have many people engaged into this process, kind of like on a Twitter community or like on a GitHub repository where you have an issue to solve, people maybe will not engage all their efforts into one single long review, but maybe the system itself will promote micro contributions. So people will have this let's say this power of the reviewer 1 and 2 would be dispersed into many people contributed to the work. And I guess also the perception of the gain would be different. So
yeah, I mean that's interesting. I always thought of it as the classic, you have 2 or 3 reviewers, or I mean in this case you can have many reviewers but only a few of them but everyone reviews the entire paper and gets judged according to that. But I guess it is also an option that you have really just, well, let's say, I mean, obviously it won't work like this, but let's say you have a Word document and people can make a comment on that, right? Then someone can comment like, hey, you have a typo here. It's as a very stupid example, but then people can say like, oh yeah, you do have a comment, you do have a typo there, and then they can upvote that comment, for example. I guess that almost makes more sense to me than taking the old thing of people reviewing the entire paper and just putting that in a blockchain. but actually also changing the way that review is actually done. I guess you'd still need like these big meta commentaries, like your overall conclusion doesn't follow from the results or whatever, right? But I guess it is interesting to actually reconsider how what a review even is in that sense.
Yeah, in fact, that kind of goes back to the concept behind the name of Ants Review, because it evokes this idea of having a colony of ants, which is an emergent, organism among all the parts. So in a way, you could see like the final product of the paper as this emergent entity that comes from all these micro contributions that could be from your lab, could be from the external reviewers, but in a sense there are several people working on that. Also, it's interesting, for example, in the peer review, among the recent peer review proposals, there is this one of automatizing let's say, the superficial editing of the review with AI, which could take care of, the language aspects, even the statistics, such that the reviewer could concentrate only on the content, on the science itself. But still, there is a debate about how review could be changed, if we can create a new standard for doing a peer review. And I think in this sense, Ants Review kind of, goes in this direction. Of course, for now, I don't know if you have had a chance to take a look to the MVP, but we have this traditional,
So MVP means what?
Minimum viable product. Yeah, basically we have this, we have our little application.
This is
you need a crypto wallet in order to operate.
I was about to say that's a slight problem. You need a wallet to actually use a thing. Yeah. So I've seen the video, but I don't have a crypto wallet.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually do have one now, but I haven't connected it to my laptop and that kind of stuff. So
anyway, now it would be a bit expensive maybe to do the transaction, even just to try. But anyway, you see that for now we have just this simple thing of you upload a document, so it's going to be like the whole review. But the idea is to evolve towards these micro contributions maybe, and having more people involved in the process.
But it's funny, once you mentioned the idea of letting some AI do that, that's going to be the next moneymaker then, isn't it? Having an AI that finds like every discrepancy in a paper, like statistical discrepancies and all these things, and then you get money for each of the comments.
You mean the AI gets the money? What?
I mean, no. You like, so if you think like big picture, I don't know how hard this is, but in some cases at least it will pay off more to write an algorithm that finds the errors and then almost automatically implements them rather than to find the errors yourself, right? Because then every time you can paper basically you can let that algorithm run over and you can get. But then again, I guess that is a great contribution if you have something that finds.
I wouldn't be so scared of it. Actually, I think it would be a lot of, less time wasted, because sometimes reviewers have to waste time just doing the editing of a paper, because some papers are just delivered, like really raw drafts. Because again, due to this publish perish culture, people just want to submit something, even not finished. Once I reviewed a paper that was totally not finished, and I really I couldn't understand, there were parts repeated, it really looked like an early stage work. And so, but I guess the point, what's the value of a human researcher that for now a machine can't provide, is actually the whole core science in the work, like the scientific hypothesis and the coherence among the argumentations that you're probably one day even I don't know, GP3 will be able to do that. I don't know. But for that, we need humans to do peer reviews.
For now, yeah. So one general question I have is about whether ANT's reviews needs to be on a blockchain or not. So, I mean, again, as I said in the beginning, I have about 2 weeks of reading about blockchain and these kind of things. And so I think one way of thinking about it is just that it's a tool like almost anything else, and a tool has a specific purpose and advantages and disadvantages. I mean, I just looked up like what are some advantages and disadvantages of blockchains, and it wasn't immediately clear why ANT's review should be done via blockchain and not via a private company that has its internal database. Yeah, do you maybe want to just, I don't know whether you have an answer to that, or I can address specific advantages or disadvantages.
I mean, in general, if you think in terms of security and openness, we think that blockchain is the best tool because it guarantees you decentralization. Well, if you have data that, again, it's aggregated in a company, we are creating Facebook again, so, or Google. So you can put all your scientific output there, and Google or Facebook or, okay, let's not mention them, but private company one day just decides to change the terms.
But couldn't you set it up as like let's say a non-profit organization that has, I don't know, like how you could, I mean, I don't know, set it up that it's not like someone can just decide to delete all the data or whatever, right? I don't know. It just seems to me like it could be possible to do a lot of what you want to do with ANT's review, but without, I mean, so one, like, do we really need the entire distributed network, for example, to store and verify every single comment and every like and all these kind of things, right? Like it's very inefficient in a way, it seems to me sometimes, that like not, I think the main problem I had was just with the efficiency of the system. And I think I can see how for something like if you want to replace a bank, how that's important. But with peer review, I don't know. It wasn't quite.
No, I mean, of course, but depends what you take in the picture, right? Because if you think of journals, for example, they make billions. They make a lot of money from this, for being the intermediaries between, people providing a service to the scientific community and people receiving it, like citizens and taxpayers. So even if you have some systems that are, totally non-profit, what's the scale of this non-profit? Because there are always going to be some, private, let's say, sources. Even in big non-profits projects, where do you get the money? Like usually it's either taxes from contributors, and so you can have these big grants, but this we are talking about funding, right? But when it comes to hosting on platforms, I don't know, it doesn't come to my mind a specific completely public system that it's not corruptible. Maybe CERN has tried something like that. It could be considered like, it's made by scientists and it has public funding. But I think whenever you work with private companies and with journals, there's always going to be profit. Otherwise, how can they sustain themselves?
Well, but it's one thing. Maybe this is the same thing, I don't know, but it still seems to me to be different. I mean, so let's say, for example, a bank, right? You place money in a bank because you trust them to keep it, and that if you want to transfer it to someone else, they can guarantee that it happens, that the other person gets the money. But to me, I don't know, a journal makes its money mostly of unpaid labor, but mostly of its reputation. I wonder whether that's the same thing as the trust we hold in a bank.
I mean, journals right now make most of their money because the journals are not open access. I mean, the articles are not open access. So to access them, you need to pay. And even more, if you want to publish them open access, you have to pay much more now.
Yeah.
So basically, the people who are producing the science are not getting any money.
Yeah. I understand, and I completely agree that it makes no sense for Elsevier to earn that much money from what they do. It's just somehow it seems to me that, like, for example, you mentioned security as an advantage of blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
But what exactly is the fear here? Like that someone would hack into Elsevier and write new reviews for papers?
Some people have already done that, not specifically to Elsevier, but I don't want to name a specific journal, but I have read actually that both these, conference systems that are used mostly for computer science, like EasyChair, it's like you upload your paper and then they have, not EasyChair specifically, but in general, they are very vulnerable. But also journals, like they don't really check the identity of people. Like you could have a fake email and enter the system as a reviewer of your own paper. This has already happened. Of course, it's not like on a huge scale. So in this sense, the security wouldn't be the biggest threat because it's not like we are talking about sensible data, right?
Yeah, you're talking about peer review, not the data itself.
We are talking about the scientific output, but still there is this thing. I don't know, let's imagine an hypothetical scenario where, I don't know, the companies behind the journal fails, or they just decide to take off all the articles. And you have no access anymore to the science, or to the reviews, or there is always this limit, this, this vulnerability that, okay, we don't maybe see much in right now in academic publishing, although actually most of the researchers that I know, and especially in third world countries, have been massively relying on Sci-Hub for accessing science. So this might mean something if you really need a pirate system to read paper. So why is that? If the system was perfectly optimized right now, we wouldn't need to leverage on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not suggesting that the way it's run right now is the optimal way. I was just,
but that's...
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I understood your point, but it also goes back to... So that's the thing. For example, the motto of blockchain is don't trust, verify. And I think this motto is really scientific in its core. It's basically on the basis of science. Actually, if you think about it, the motto of the Royal Society was nullius in verba. Like, basically, you shouldn't take for granted anything from other people's words without, verifying. And every time you have intermediaries in a system, you're basically giving your trust to them, and they are powerful because basically whatever they do, you have no control. Basically, you outsource your value to someone who's gonna be the custodian of this. So that's the main motivation probably for which people are moving towards blockchain. Of course, maybe it's more evident when you are talking about banks, especially for countries where there is a lot of inflation and money is unstable. This is super evident when the politics interferes with the economics, and a bank basically system collapses, you lose the money. Is like, all the value goes down. And if you translate this same problem to, I don't know, science, it could basically be the same. Like from one day to the other could happen. Actually, that's kind of what happened so far. Like some publishing companies basically prohibited access to some universities because they were, not agreeing with the system of paying high fees, or not to talk about all the cases on court. For example, you must know about Aaron Swartz, who is this pioneer of open access, and also he worked on lots of projects, and he committed.
So is he the guy who uploaded lots of papers and then committed suicide?
Yeah. And he was charged of, I think, 35 years of prison, and I don't know how many millions to pay. And the papers were already out of copyright since many years because they were very old, and they came from an academic service, internal system. So it's not that he hacked the system somehow. It was like, I have access to this university, I'm taking the papers and putting somewhere else. So this is kind of weird. It's kind of creepy, actually, like the power that.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I'm not trying to defend the way that journals make profit. I think my question is maybe more towards, because you're not suggesting really, I mean, you said maybe this could be linked to a journal or whatever, right? But right now it's just about peer review, and the peer review is, I mean, there's lots that can be improved there.
Mm-hmm.
You said the speed, especially. But most of the things you just mentioned, it doesn't seem to me that that's something you're trying to solve with ANTS, though, right? Like it's part of the same ecosystem that tries to change how we communicate science and findings, but it doesn't seem to me that, or are you saying because you have to upload your manuscript into ANTS for people to be able to review it, that guarantees that papers can always be read?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of interconnected in the sense that the value that the journal, you were talking about the prestige, right? But who is giving the prestige to a journal? It's the fact that it gathers, probably a specific journal gathers, the best researchers in the field, and also provides the best peer reviews. I think if you look to high impact factor journals, they're not gonna give you like sloppy reviews. They're gonna have many checks. I don't know. I didn't have a specific experience about that, but the whole value, it's around the validation. It's kind of like the peer review is.
Do you really think that? I always thought that it was more that for some reason, whatever it might be, some journal gets a reputation, and then more people submit good papers. I mean, like an example would be like, I feel like if I were to be editor-in-chief of Nature,
Mm-hmm.
Or responsible of the physics section or whatever, like something I don't understand anything about, and I just picked articles at random, they'd probably be pretty good. Like the quality of the articles published would probably still be pretty good, just because people submit their best work there. I'm not saying that they don't add good peer review, but I feel like it's more like you just have, for whatever reason, this reputation, and based on that, people send different quality work to journals. But maybe that's wrong.
No. There is totally this aspect, but we also agree that a paper that is not peer reviewed doesn't have the same value. So you can have any potential nature around there, and if it's still on bioRxiv, people are not going to notice it as much as when it's on Nature.
Yeah, it gets like a final stamp.
So the peer review is really this validation that it's kind of correspondent to the blockchain validation of a block. Like until a block is not validated. People, there is no this consensus of the community that this is the valid track. So you can have multiple chains, but only the one that is validated by the community is the one that is going to have valuable transactions. And if you transfer this metaphor also in the scientific field, I think it's kind of like that. COVID probably changed a bit the scenario, because there was this necessity of having papers and scientific outputs faster. So people started relying on preprints. But normally preprints have an internal value, like people retweet them, comment them, but until they have this final stamp of it's peer-reviewed, accepted by a journal, is not the same thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have been aware that people's attitudes to preprints have changed during COVID, but it's, I spent, we did a paper on COVID, and it's a preprint still. It would be a paper already if I finished it. But right now it's still a preprint. And that, because it's on risk perception about getting COVID and that kind of stuff, it got cited 40 times since it appeared last year, and it's still a preprint, right? It's still a 4-page preprint, and people somehow, I don't know, trust it more. I don't know. Yeah, it is this weird thing where in any other preprint, not any other, but most, I feel like any other preprint let's say I'd write it's not going to get 40 citations in a year. Partly based off what you said, people.
I also totally agree with you that there is also a sort of filter, pre-selection due to the prestige of the journal, but we created that. It's not that it was already pre-existing in the Imperuranium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's the thing. What makes science is the fact that I do something and someone else checks it for me and validates if it's correct or not, right? Otherwise, I could do science by myself and I would be super dogmatic about it because, but if you think the process could be decoupled from a journal, you don't necessarily need to have the whole apparatus of these publishing companies to have this sort of validation that you need in research. So, that's what my reason is mostly about. And if you think of that, and if you think of removing this medium, blockchain is the only system that allows you to have this decentralization that I know. Per se, it's every time you put something in between, it's gonna be an aggregator of power, let's say. So that's kind of okay, I'm bullish about it also because I did my project on that, so I need to be convinced about my own ideas, otherwise.
Yeah. No, the thing is, I'm not. I'm still very. I have no idea whether this would work, whether it would not work. It sounds interesting to me. I like the general approach. It sounds cool, but I just that's part of why I want to talk to you about this. I just don't know a lot of this stuff, and I guess I've also never really thought about what exactly the value of where does the value of a specific paper come from? Does it come through the fact that it's peer reviewed? Does it come through the journal? I don't know. I've never really taken it apart in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I see that there are papers that are published in, journals that don't have this high impact factor, but still they have a lot of citations. So the impact factor of the paper is not necessary, doesn't correlate with the impact factor of the journal. Well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, yeah. Actually, it's funny because I had also this discussion with the founder of Sci-Hub. I had the chance to be part of an interview or chat.
Okay.
About with Alexandra Bakian. And I was really asking her about blockchain, like, why don't you use blockchain? Because she actually uses Bitcoin for partially for getting, funding, right? So why not using blockchain also for the whole system of papers? And well, she didn't seem super convinced, and she was like, this interview is online anyway, you can check it, but
what is it? Sorry, just so I can.
It's some flow. I will send you the link. It's some flow. It was last September. Basically, Sci-Hub it's itself a centralized system, right?
Yeah.
But it's pirating another centralized system. So the thing is that Sci-Hub can exist until all these big publishing companies exist. One day when all the open access will be possible, then there is no point on stealing papers and putting on this library.
Exactly.
But at the same time, there is this problem of the value, because if you think about it, I mean, I'm a big fan of Sci-Hub and Alexandra's work, but I think it solves one problem, in the sense that it solves the problem of the accessibility for, researchers and citizens, the people who are going to benefit from the service of scientific production. But still, the people who produce science don't get anything from that. Basically because... Yeah. So that's why if you have a blockchain system that also rewards the people who produce those outputs, then you can have a fair system in which you don't need to steal from people who already have stolen from you, but everyone could, pretty much benefit from the service and the consumption of
and the work
service.
Put into it, right? Yeah.
It's something funny, because something is already happening in the arts world, in the artistic scenario. Like, I don't know if you have heard about NFT, non-fungible tokens.
I've heard about it. I don't really know whether it makes sense or not. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, maybe now there is a bit of a speculative bubble as well. But in theory, I think that the problem that we have in science is the same that artists have, because they make art, and then the ones that make the money are actually the ones that produce your work and communicate your work. So even if you just put your music or your artwork on, YouTube and so on, Spotify, they are the ones making the money, not you. You get a little tiny bit of profit from all the visualizations and so on. And you don't own your content completely.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I saw that today, or not today, you tweeted, but I saw you retweeted recently something about people suggesting that papers or whatever should also be NFTs.
Yeah, this is...
or whether it is. You also posted a counterpoint. And,
I'm not super sure about that, in the sense of bidding, like in an auction, like it happens with art, because this is really advantageous if you have an auction, a decentralized auction on the blockchain. Then you can buy art, I can buy your art, and we don't have this intermediary that is making money out of this. I wouldn't push it too much for bidding on scientific work, scientific papers. Though I find it interesting. Okay, let's see what happens if you put a paper on NFT.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that yet. As I said, I'm 2 weeks into learning about blockchain, and I've said NFTs is, let me first figure out exactly what Ethereum does, and then we'll get to.
It's very new, actually. This is really like, basically I also had 2 weeks of knowledge before I started, and then every 2 weeks, every month, there was something completely new coming up, and it's really difficult to catch up with all the...
Yeah, it's very fast, and it's also very technical. Anyway, so I just want to, as a last thing, just talk about like the future of ants and what you want to do. I mean, it seems obvious that in a few years there's going to be no journals. It's just going to be ants.
No, it's not
It's
obvious.
just going to be ants.
It's not obvious at all.
It's going to be the one system to rule them all. But until then, yeah, I mean, like, what do you plan as next steps? And maybe also as part of that answer, how do you intend on tackling like the technical adoption difficulties? For example, I actually have a crypto wallet, but I haven't been able to check your thing because it's not linked to my laptop, to my work laptop, so I couldn't check it earlier. And I know that the whole crypto stuff is changing fairly rapidly, but I've only had one person other than you who seems to know anything about the topic at all. Everyone I know has basically just, and it's not a topic I'd really talked about to anyone right now. And I guess I talk mainly to researchers. So how, if this has to become usable, how do we make that happen?
Yeah, so actually a big part of the time that I invested during the fellowship at Kernel was actually, looking back at the design and doing some research on the design. So basically user tests and just some very preliminary surveys with researchers that I launched on Twitter and LinkedIn to gather some ideas also about the difficulties on, approaching the technology. And of course, we are aware of this barrier because if you don't consider, even among crypto researchers or blockchain researchers, it's not that everyone is familiar with decentralized applications and how to use a crypto wallet to do certain transactions, because it's simply not something that you do. It's not as easy as the Web 2 that is just clickable and, they just take all your data, they do everything for you, and you don't have anything to care about. Here, you know that you're responsible because there is no third party that is going to take responsibility if something bad happens. So everything is done more carefully. So that's why actually, after I put the project on pause to refocusing more on my PhD, the idea now is to also my collaborator has other projects, so he's the smart contract developer. So we decided to focus on community, on building community. So basically trying to do as much dissemination of this protocol as possible, and specifically in the academic community. Because in the blockchain community, we kind of seen that people are really welcoming the idea. We also launched a sort of mini grant on Gitcoin, and we raised some money from which we paid the fees for the publication, for example, of the paper, and money in crypto, obviously in Ether and DAI. And it's fun how the community is enthusiastically contributing to the project, although they are not concerned in the first place because most of them are not academic researchers, so they like the idea. Also, the academic researchers like the idea, but again, they don't know how to. So that's why I think having the paper published, peer-reviewed, and published on a journal, or actually in a book as a book chapter, was a big...
In the traditional way.
In a traditional way, was an important milestone to kind of bridge these two worlds. Because now I see, for example, editors are reading the article. I also had the chance to talk with other laboratories that do research in blockchain in other countries. And so I think the paper is gathering some interest. Of course, it has been published just not even 1 month ago. So before there was one preprint online.
Yeah, the preprint out.
Yeah, like roughly 2 months before there was already the preprint, and before it was just, I actually managed to release the preprint in end of January, let's say. So it was not
out
I
thought it was before that.
For a long time. And so before it was really much about the conference that we held in Poland. Well, it was an online conference among academics in computer science. So again, people who are, competent on the topic. And so now I'm trying to reach out a bigger public. So through Twitter and also through the participation on another workshop that is going to be held in May, that it's called Cool Tool for Science, hosted by the Champalimaud Institute in Portugal, Lisboa. Basically, we are trying to gather some attention on the work and some discussion about it, and basically kind of low profile, but keeping the attention on every once in a while, and also looking for funding very, discreetly, because...
What would the funding be used for?
Yeah, so basically we are now 2 people, mainly the founders of the project. And during the fellowship, we had also some contributors, especially for the front-end development of this application. But we don't have a bigger team that is, formed. So we would like to have more people on board. And if we had a grant, also we could pay for expenses like article publications and people working with us and so on.
But it's mainly salary then. I guess you don't need an infrastructure that much if it's distributed, right? That's kind of the whole point.
No, we don't need... no, we don't have... so the idea was not to create a startup, It's really the idea is to have a non-profit project, but also something that is really, inserted in academia. So for now, we are looking mostly for grants, maybe collaboration with laboratories, both from private institutions, but also universities. Yeah. So also because we have many ideas, but the implementations are not necessarily, at hand. Some of the things that you wanted to implement are still being built by other companies. So there are certain aspects that will require some time, and of course with funding, it's easier to carry on a project. It's open source, so, and it's also not our main project right now. It's a side project, but if we had more resources, it could become a main project. I don't know.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna follow what happens with ants.
Thank you.
Let's see how it goes. It's funny, I can't remember when I asked you whether you wanted to do the interview, maybe 3 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
And it was mainly because I thought okay, Bianca's doing something interesting here about peer review, and I have a bit of meta science stuff on the podcast also. So I thought okay, it would fit well. I can also chat to Bianca again. Let's see maybe what this is about. I don't really know anything about this, right? And then basically through this project, I've started looking into blockchain.
Oh, that's
this whole
cool.
thing.
I'm happy.
it was literally I saw that you had this thing going on and thought this sounds kind of interesting. And then I think around the same time, Lex Friedman on his podcast had lots of guests who were talking about this kind of stuff, right? And basically, and so then I listened to those. I thought well, I'll just listen to those as kind of background for our conversation. So I know a little bit about it. And then at some point I started realizing that this is not just about Bitcoin and money, which I always thought is what it was, and that it's much, much more than that. And I spent the last 10 days pretty much just reading about it, and it's really fascinating.
That's exactly what happened for me, actually.
you introduced a completely new world to me there. I'm not sure whether I'm grateful yet for it or I'm just wasting a lot of time. But yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe your initial onboarding to the blockchain world or to the space, as they say, will lead to something else.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, as I said, like some of my research is about game theory, so I'm very interested. That's kind of the angle through which I'm looking at it. But yeah, so I'll definitely be, I don't know, checking out what you're doing.
Maybe if you want to contribute as well, collaborate at some point.
So Bianca, how? Not me necessarily specifically, but like in general, if people want to contribute. Like, other than giving you lots of money.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm a PhD student also. That's not
no.
I could
Actually,
contribute.
This is interesting because the way we raise the money, it's through Gitcoin, which is using this new system that might interest you very much because it's related to a new experiment for basically distributing resources in society, which is called quadratic funding, which was developed by within the Radical Exchange project and association, let's say, was developed by researcher in Microsoft and in political science. And basically, the idea is for both quadratic voting, quadratic funding, that to have a non-linear system of redistributing resources, in the sense that is the amount of people engaged into a specific project that counts, and not how much money or votes you put in it, right? So, for example, in Gitcoin, every once in a while there are these rounds for raising money for specific grants, and we also have our answer review grant. And the cool thing is that the system works like this. Basically, 1,000 people that put $1, let's say, can have a bigger impact than one single person that puts $1,000.
Okay.
Because basically, there is a mathematical equation that I'm not gonna go through now. But basically, the system is gonna pay off for the more amount of smaller contributions. So basically, it's measuring the impact and the interest that a specific project has on the community, rather than favoring people who have a lot of resources. And so, in this sense, if you want to contribute, you don't need to be rich. You can just put $1, and this will make a difference to answer review.
Okay, cool. And in can people? I mean, you said like it's 2 people right now.
Yeah.
Let's say, can people? I don't know. Start programming in what's it called again? What is Ethereum using again?
Solidity.
Solidity, yeah. Do you need like people on that front also, or is it?
Well, depends, in the sense that right now we don't really need to. We don't have in plan to start programming new stuff. My collaborator basically is a backend developer. So actually we were looking for a front-end developer, so someone who uses Rinkeby, React, and so on. We don't have any position open, because we don't have money, so it would be free work in that sense. So any kind of collaboration, I think it's welcome on my side, especially for the research aspects, because I really want to. I think it's really important first to have clear ideas about the design before proceeding on a next step of, product development. So I think now we are in this phase after we produced this first the proof of concept, then the MVP. We need to rethink the design a bit. So I think we are more looking for discussions on the mechanism design, how to improve it, how to implement this token engineering part, because you don't want to build something and then it's totally unfunctional or people don't want to use it. So now we are in this contemplative state of let's see what the community wants, what researchers want, and what is possible doing, and so on. And of course, we have our Telegram channel.
I don't have Telegram. I have Signal.
Most people in this in tech companies and these communities and in blockchain, they use Telegram and Discord.
Really?
So
I still don't know what Discord is.
It's kind of like Slack. It's very similar to Slack.
I've never used Slack.
You never use Slack?
I talk and I use email. That's pretty much all I do.
Oh my god. No, it's much better to have this and so pretty much we use as communication channels Twitter and Telegram, and we have our Substack newsletter where you're free to subscribe. Welcome to subscribe. We haven't updated much recently because there are no big the big novelties. We're trying to gather the big novelties and put in one specific newsletter, so stay tuned on our Twitter account and review that hopefully you will put in the as a link. I don't know how it works in the podcast.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description.
And that's it, I guess. You had another question, right? Or something I didn't answer? Actually, you had this question. Yeah, this I wanted to correct you because you were saying something about the crypto wallet and the fact of having some, cryptographic knowledge or something. Actually, the fun thing of this of the space is that there are a lot of expert people working on the structure of these applications, but both users but also people who develop applications, they don't need to know about cryptography to do stuff on the blockchain. Like, it's super easy to use crypto wallets. You just subscribe and you buy some crypto and you start using. It's kind of like subscribing to Facebook.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess my point is more that I guess it's more a generic point about technology, or if you want someone to make a change, basically right now, I feel like with most scientists, and I would really say it's at least like the people I talk to is pretty much everyone, you have to first explain what a wallet is, a crypto wallet.
Of course,
and basically you have to first teach them the basics, and then only then can they start adopting.
I wanted to put it in the paper. But people are like, come on, everyone, this is obvious. And I was like, no, this is not obvious. This for me was the most difficult part. I was super scared when I had this crypto wallet. I was like, he's going to suck all my money. I was afraid of doing anything. No, I totally agree. That's why, maybe this is something unanswered for the next step. Because this is just a conference paper, the one that we published. But it's on the plan to expand it to a bigger paper. It maybe go through some technicalities that might be obvious for people in the blockchain, but not for people in academia.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the point is also like, I feel like if I were to suggest this to any PI to use ANS, they'd say like, what? I have to learn blockchain. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I know. Because of that, like it's basically like your there's just like a step in between, right?
I know. Yeah. You're totally right.
So now I know like using a crypto wallet is super easy once you know roughly what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated, but I mean, let's put it this way: like I've been doing this for like, I've been reading about this for like 10 days or something, and I still feel like I have a lot of reading to do.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you. And actually, that's what I wanted when I started this point. I just wanted to say that I think this environment is really cool because lots of developers are putting a lot of efforts in making decentralized applications that are really easy for people who are not from this field. So basically, everything that happens in between is not visible. You just you just know how to use the gadgets and the wallets and everything, but you don't need to have coding skills or deep mathematical knowledge which is kind of the same for us nowadays with the machine learning. Like when we use it in research, right? We use the algorithms, but we don't build the algorithm. So
yeah, definitely.
And we have
but
two
I
boxes.
feel like it's still it's just still new enough that I don't think most people will. Yeah, it's funny that you said like everyone said it's obvious. It wasn't to me as a reader.
No, also
like one conclusion I had reading it was kind of like, okay, I think I kind of see what you're trying to do, and I kind of see how your solution might be good. I just have no way of verifying of whether anything you're saying makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand any of the details here.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, this is also because the paper itself was for a very specific public of computer scientists, and also we had limited pages, so we had to stay within 12 pages, and we had so much to say. We had to cut many parts that we hope to include in a bigger paper. So, but I think a good point is to have maybe some mini tutorials that not only explain the concept, but also how to use the tools that are, prerequisites.
That's why I found your video very useful, because I have to admit, like when I read the paper, so I first read the paper and wrote down some questions, and one of my questions, or almost criticism, was, like my assumption was that you have to start coding to use ants, because you said like we use this function or something like that. I was like, oh wait, you want people to program how to do peer review? Like people are not going to do that. And then I saw the video, so like, oh, there is a GUI. Okay, I can see why it seemed much simpler once I saw the video.
Yeah.
Rather than just reading the paper.
Yeah.
But then again, as you said, I'm probably not the target audience for that paper, really.
Yeah, the functions are supposed to be invisible in the process.
Yeah, but when I read it, I thought like, okay, this looks really complicated just to submit a paper or something. But it's super simple when you watch the video.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your feedback. Yeah. It's another person other than me that thinks that crypto wallets are complicated when you don't know what they are.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole. I think Steven Pinker called it the curse of knowledge, or maybe he was citing someone else, right?
What?
It's impossible to.
Steven Pinker?
Steven Pinker, he has this book called Sense of Style, I think, about writing. And there he says like a lot of academic writing in particular is very bad because people can't imagine the stuff they don't know. Like they can't imagine not knowing what they know. Sorry, that's the way. Or rather, it's not even that's writing is bad. It's more, it uses a lot of jargon because people assume everyone knows everything. And It seems to me, I'm not saying your paper is bad or anything, but for me, it wasn't. And lots of points were very readable, of course, but like a lot of the technical stuff, I just had like no idea what most of this means. And it's probably just because, as you said, everyone else said, it's obvious. Everyone knows how this works.
Yeah.
Because they probably can't imagine that even most computational neuroscientists don't spend most of the time doing computer science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same if you talk to computer scientists about things that we do in computational neuroscience.
Yeah, it's just anything, right? It's very niche.